Good afternoon. My name is John Schmid, and today I'll be giving a training presentation on public speaking, what it is, what it looks like, and how to do it effectively. Before we get started, I want to give a brief introduction and just kind of give a roadmap for what we're going to be over today. I'm going to start with an introduction, then I'm going to look at what the training objective for this seminar is, what the whole point of why I'm giving this, and what I want you as the trainees to take out of it. Then we're going to define public speaking, look at how you prepare for public speaking, what you do to construct an outline, the actual art of delivering a speech, what separates a good speech from a bad one. We're going to do some group interaction, some practice exercises, and then we'll conclude after that. So, I'm a senior in communications with a focus in organizational leadership at the University of North Georgia, and I've had a passion for public speaking and for presentations and just for interpersonal communication since I was in 8th grade and took my first speech class. Today we're going to be looking at public speaking and specifically how to do it effectively. We will look at how to mentally and physically prepare for a public speech, as well as different techniques that you can use to make your speech more effective and, more importantly, memorable to the audience that you are giving your speech to. Now think back to a time when you saw someone give a speech, when you heard someone speaking in public. Now think back to a time when you yourself spoke in public. Were you comfortable? Did you feel like you knew what you were doing? Oftentimes the reasons that people feel uncomfortable giving public speeches or feel uncomfortable speaking in public in general isn't because they have such a fear of it, but it's because they haven't been trained or equipped on how to do it properly. And that is the main problem that I'm looking to fix today. So the overall objective for this training session is for all participants, that's you guys, to be able to explain and demonstrate effective speech preparation and delivery techniques, as well as to be able to construct an outline for a speech approximately 3 minutes in length. Now, I know that on the front end, that seems like a very lofty objective, but I promise if you just stick with me through this, you'll be amazed at how simple and easy public speaking can really be. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a senior in communications at the University of North Georgia. I've taken over 20 classes focusing on public speaking, interpersonal communication, and presentation giving in my time in school. And in those classes, I've done over 100 different speeches or presentations. So I'm well experienced when it comes to giving presentations and preparing for them. I'd like to start with a definition. What is public speaking? We hear this term and we often think it's just, people giving up and giving these big speeches in front of large crowds or mass gatherings, but what is public speaking? Well, the Webster Dictionary defines public speaking as the art of effective oral communication with an audience. And I want to break that definition down. The first two words are the art. So what is an art? People think of the arts, they think of drama, they think of visual art, they think of things like that. But really an art is anything that's not a fixed science. It's anything that you can take and put your own interpretation on, your spin on there. There's no right or wrong in terms of what the outcome should be. The second part of that definition is of effective oral communication. We all know oral communication, it's speaking, it's in the words public speaking. But that word effective is very important. You want your public speaking to be able to be remembered by your audience, but also influence them. If you're trying to convince somebody to invest in a product, your ultimate goal is their investment, is their money. If you're trying to convince somebody to subscribe to something, you want to be able to convince them. You want to be effective. If you're trying to inform, you want what you're saying to be informative. So public speaking is the art of effective oral communication with an audience. That last part, speaking to anybody. An audience doesn't have to be 50,000 people. It doesn't have to be, a president's inaugural address. It can be 3 people. It can be a group of classmates. The audience can be any size, and so that's why public speaking is easier than people realize. It's because we public speak on a regular basis. Take some time and think about some of the speeches that you've seen in your life. Were they effective? What do you remember about them? Did you enjoy listening to them? Why or why not? When I think about speeches, I often look at what the speaker is doing specifically and how they are conveying their message and how I remember that message. Did they use good visual aids? Were they engaging? Did they incorporate, little pneumatic devices that were easy to remember? These are the things that we ask ourselves after a speech. Now, when I say the words public speaking, what is the first speech that comes to mind? For a lot of you, it may be Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. If you're a little bit more into the sports world, it may be LeBron James' I'm Taking My Talents to South Beach address. Or maybe you're just someone who likes to be informed and you remember TED Talks. Whatever public speech comes to mind, we can all agree that we've seen someone public speaking and we have an idea of what it is. The next thing I'd like to get into is preparing for public speaking. there seems to be this negative stigma associated with the words public speaking. They feel like bad words. They're something that people have a fear of. Why do we think that is? Why are people so uncomfortable speaking in front of an audience when you label it public speaking, but not uncomfortable speaking in front of an audience when it's called talking with friends? Stage fright is often a common reason that is given for the fear of public speaking. But is stage fright really a fear itself, or is it more a lack of preparation and nervousness, feeling like you don't know how to properly give the speech and scared that you'll fail? How do you prepare for handling a large assignment at work? How about in your day-to-day life? What steps do you take in order to get that accomplished and get that accomplished effectively? Because I believe that the same steps that you take to accomplish a task at work are very similar to the ways that you would go about preparing to give a public speak. This is the key point. If you hear nothing else that I say, please just remember this. The lack of preparation is often what kills a speech. People can get over somebody that they can't fully understand. They can get over somebody who seems like they're a little nervous to be up there. But if you seem ill-prepared, people are going to have a hard time listening to you, and you are going to immediately discredit yourself and ruin your credibility from the moment you step in front of people. I want to break preparing for a public speech into two sections. We have mentally preparing and we have physically preparing. And I'll explain the difference in a little bit. When we look at mentally preparing, the most important step when it comes to mentally preparing for a speech is practice. You want your brain to be so in tune with the words that you're saying and the topic that you're covering that it feels second nature. There's the expression, you know it like the back of your hand, but I don't really know the back of my hand that well. For me, I just want it to be so comfortable that even if I get lost or if I dropped my notes, I would know where I was going because I was familiar with the topic. So mentally preparing for a public speech, the most important thing you can do is practice. A couple other points, if you look in your handout, you'll see that focus is important. The way that we focus before a public speech, some ways that I found that helped me, is remove stressors. You know, if you're in a loud, noisy environment beforehand, take some time, get off by yourself. Allow your body and your mind time to focus, to settle down. Clear your mind beforehand. If you're religious, pray, meditate, things of that nature, listen to soothing music, whatever it may take, do whatever you can to calm your mind. Review your notes a couple minutes before your public speech. This will help you focus, but it won't feel like you're cramming by doing it seconds before you go on and making you more nervous. Another way we mentally prepare is by building confidence. Believe in yourself. People underestimate the power of confidence. There have been countless studies done about the benefits of power posing and positive self-talk. Encourage yourself. Believe that you can do it. Simply believing that you can do something and boosting your own confidence will go light years to help make your speech more effective and more influential. Like I said earlier, you want to know your material. Building your confidence is all about having the confidence. You have to have it, or you have to build it in order to actually have it. And when you have confidence in the material that you're presenting, it's much easier to build that up and say, no, I do know this. I know what I'm talking about. I don't need these notes. I don't need to sit here and read off these papers because I know what I'm talking about. The last way that we can build our confidence is do not expect yourself to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. And so when we go up expecting a perfect presentation out of ourselves, we are doomed to fail because we will never live up to that expectation of perfection. You want to know your audience. You want to know what type of demographics you're presenting to. If I'm talking to 4-year-olds, it's going to be much different than if I'm talking to a group of my colleagues or my superiors. The way you present yourself, the words you use, the interactions you have, the activities or the group engagement that you use will all be very different depending on who is in your demographic. Now, when it comes to physically preparing for a public speech, I want to ask the same question again. What is the most important step to physically prepare? We went over mentally preparing, but what do you think the most important step is for physical preparedness? It's still practice. Practicing your speech makes it like muscle memory. When you know what you're about to say, you can bounce from one point to another without feeling like you're stressed if you get off track a little bit. You don't feel like you're forced to remember and memorize something perfectly because you're comfortable with it. You're familiar with it. I bet most of y'all can drive to and from your house and to work without even thinking about the turns you have to make because it's second nature. That's the sort of physicality that you want and the familiarity that you want with the topic that you're giving or presenting in a public speech. To do this, some other ways that we can prepare physically for a public speech is to build our credibility. Dress professionally. People say dress for the job you want, not the job you have. I say dress to impress the audience that you're presenting to. You want to know why you're qualified to speak on that topic and that subject matter. If it's worth it and if it is beneficial, list the reasons you're credible. Boost your credibility by giving the reasons you're a viable source on that information. Be prepared to answer questions. Expect that some people are going to not get everything they wanted out of the words that you said deliberately in your speech, so be prepared to answer questions after the fact. Make your speech appealing. Use visual aids, demonstrations, be engaging, get on the level of your audience, talk to them as individuals, not just as an audience, and come with an appropriate amount of energy for the situation. Like I mentioned earlier, if I'm dealing with 4-year-olds, I'm going to be way over the top and more boisterous and loud and engaging and talking to them than I am if I'm giving a business presentation. If I'm giving a business presentation, I simply want to appear professional and intelligent. To give an effective speech, to be physically prepared, you must have an effective outline. This set of papers right here is called an outline, and it's a roadmap for the speech. It dictates where the speech is going to go, but it's not the end-all be-all. I'm not reading it like it's a book. In your packet, you'll see some do's and don'ts of a good outline. I'm not going to go through and read all of those, but that is some tips and pointers that you can use in order to boost the effectiveness of your outlines. You should be familiar enough with your speech that you don't need these papers. These papers should be a backup. You should be able to give the speech from memory and from familiarity with the subject matter, but it should not be just you reading off of papers. When it comes to delivering the speech, you want it to feel as natural and as comfortable as possible. Things to think about. There are things to think about and focus on while you're giving the speech. Things like eye contact, rate, diction, volume, gestures, posture, movement, clarity, engagement. Listed a lot of things, but when you think about it, eye contact, are you looking at your audience? Rate, how fast are you speaking? Diction, how clear are you speaking? Can your audience hear you? Volume, how loud are you speaking? Gestures, are you using your hands and your body effectively to convey the message? Posture, are you commanding and communicating through your stance? Clarity, how clearly is the message you're giving coming across to your audience? Think about how you would like to hear the speech before you give it. Engagement, effective interaction with your audience will go a long way to making them remember the things that you say. Because people say a picture's worth 1,000 words, but if you can create a memory, if someone can remember, oh, I remember doing that exercise, they'll remember what that exercise was for and what the goal you wanted them to learn was. These things will make your speeches light years and leaps and bounds better. What separates a good speech from a bad speech? Well, a good speech will feel natural. It'll feel like the speaker is engaged and is constantly talking and feels like they're commanding your attention. A bad speech will feel rushed and unprepared. It'll feel inauthentic. Now I'm going to give some quick demonstrations of good speech technique and poor speech technique. Standing here confidently, my eye contact is good, not looking at my notes, not reading, speaking clearly and loudly. Those are good speech techniques. Looking down, reading, mumbling, all these sorts of things, looking shy, being away. Those are all ways that you can absolutely kill your speech before you even get started. So at your tables with the other trainees, I want to offer some quick training exercises. Write a quick outline explaining how you would give a speech, walking someone through the steps of how to do a daily task. Whether it's taking out the trash, tying your shoes, washing dishes, turning on the TV. Write a quick outline for a speech that you think would be about 1.5 minutes in length. Present that quick speech to the other members at your table. And then after presenting, ask for feedback. Think about what you could have done better, ask for what they think you could have done better. Go back, revise your outline, and I'll be coming around to ask for help, offer help, and if you have any questions, I'll be able to answer those as well. I hope that you all have learned a lot about public speaking, what it is, and how to do it effectively. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear those. But once again, my name is John Schmid. It's been a pleasure training you all today. Thank you.